pleasure to be here um, with an audience which is not purely pharma. I know there are a lot of non-pharma people sitting here. So I think I thought it as to be an opportunity for me to connect and communicate with this gathering on what is happening in the Indian regulatory system, Indian drug regulatory system to be more precise, and how the world is looking at it and looking India as a country producing medicines for the world. So just to set the context, some of these numbers I'm sure many of you know, but I think I'll spend some time for just setting the context. So you know that this industry is about 60 billion US dollars today, and it's divided between export and domestic trade, about 50-50 both of them. And when it comes to export, which is the major thrust area for us, because that's the place where the growth will come for future, the projection is about 130 billion US dollars by 2030. So next 5 years, 6 years, we have to almost go beyond 2 times, 2.5 times of what we are doing today. So that is one data point which is very important for us. Coming back to the numbers, in terms of what we are doing with respect to global supply chain, 60% to 70% of global vaccine production is happening in India. 25% of US generic is actually being supplied from India. I'm sorry, 40%, it is 40% of US generics, and 25% of UK total medicine consumption is actually being supplied from India. More than 200 countries receive medicines from us. And there are countries in LMIC domain where more than 90% of the medicines are being supplied by Indian manufacturers. So these numbers are very encouraging as a country. And we know that beyond trade, for me, it's not only trade. Culturally, India is very sensitive to need of others, and that we have demonstrated during COVID, specifically for vaccines. But it was not the first time, and historically we have been doing in drug supply chain globally. And we are respected for that. And in fact, my experience as drug controller of India has been that people wait for Indian supplies, people wait for engagement with India when it comes to global drug supply chain. And a lot of good things are happening. I'll just touch upon some of the global or some of the events which are happening currently in India in the context of the regulatory systems, which has actually impact on the global scenario. So the first thing which I would like to let all the people sitting here is, we have this Indian pharmacopoeia which sets the standard for the medicines which are sold in India, and also the standards for medicines which are exported from India as Indian standard. And you'll be happy to know that today we are sitting with 15 global recognitions for Indian pharmacopoeia. 15 countries have now recognized Indian pharmacopoeia as one of their book of standards, along with USP, BP, and European pharmacopoeia. So that's a big achievement. Last 4 years, when I shifted from corporate to the government system, we were at 3, and today, the last week, we signed the 15th one with Cuba, and that's a big achievement because that's a recognition of the quality systems and regulatory system which we are developing, what has happened in so many years in the past, and more so towards the future of the country when it comes to the standard setting. Another good milestone which we hit again in the domain of pharmacopoeia and quality standard setting was our membership for Pharmaceutical Discussion Group, popularly known as PDG. It's a global organization where it was launched sometime in 1984, if I'm not wrong, and it was originally initiated with 3 leading pharmacopoeias of the world: US pharmacopoeia, European pharmacopoeia, and Japanese pharmacopoeia. In 23, they opened it for additional membership, and among many applicants, Indian Pharmacopoeia was the only pharmacopoeia which was selected as the 4th member of that group. So today we are equal partners in that team, which now is 4 pharmacopoeias, and we discuss the main mandate for the team is global harmonization on the quality standards for medicines being sold globally. So that's a big achievement, big milestone hit for us as a country, and of course, pharmacopoeia among the leading ones. We recently concluded our WHO assessment for vaccine regulatory system with a designation of maturity level 3. So it's a scale of 4, and we hit the maturity level 3, which signifies that there is a functional regulatory system, there is a robust regulatory system, and thereby it helps the industry or manufacturers of vaccines to supply their product globally without much scrutiny. If you are not at ML3, if you are at ML2 or ML1, then it's a higher level of scrutiny which the manufacturers has to go if you have to supply and participate in global supply chain for vaccines. So that's again a big achievement for us, and people who are in vaccine business know the importance of this. So that's another recognition which the world has actually given to India and the Indian regulatory system for medicines and vaccines. We recently hosted, about 4-5 months back, the largest regulators gathering for WHO. It's called International Conference on Drug Regulatory Authorities. The leadership of global regulatory systems from almost 170 countries gathered, and that was an event which we hosted, and at the end, WHO recognized it as one of its kind, and officially they have said that the standards have been raised to a level where all the future hosts will have difficulty in actually hosting this kind of event of this standard. So another big recognition for India as a country at that level in front of all these leadership of the regulatory systems from world. I have been given a board membership of a body called we call it UMC, which is basically a collaboration between Swedish government and WHO, which manages the pharmacovigilance on behalf of WHO for the whole world. So whatever pharmacovigilance happens from WHO side, UMC is the organization which manages that, maintains the whole database, global database of pharmacovigilance, and that's run through a board where I've been given a membership. That is a big recognition for the country and our regulatory system at the global level. So many activities are happening at the global level, which actually tells us that a lot of people who watch Indian regulatory system the feedback coming is that the world view towards Indian regulatory system has changed, the way we are working and the way they look at the potential of Indian system. One of the events which I think is important to let all of you know, which has actually impacted the global health systems, is the CAR-T approval. CAR-T approvals are the latest, one of the latest the technologies for cancer treatment, especially currently successful with the leukemia and the group of cancers related to that. And as a country and as a regulator, we approved 2 products in India. Both of them are commercial now. And it is important from a couple of points. One is, of course, the cost has gone down by almost 1/10, if I'm not wrong, from about 3 crores of treatment in US. One of these companies is doing it around 30-40 lakhs. And it was a homegrown Bombay IIT startup, um, right from scratch. They developed this product and ultimately we approved it. And not just approval as a product, but it is saving lives where it is approved for the condition where all other treatments have failed. And this is the only treatment which actually, if successful, then it will be the only treatment. And we have got feedback from patients and families who ultimately got benefited and the lives of people have been saved. And it is important why I picked only CAR-T as one of the examples is because it is actually now started moving beyond Indian boundaries. Recently, we got a WhatsApp, authentic WhatsApp from New Zealand. One of the patients actually has narrated his story that they had lost hope, and then his doctor in New Zealand said that there is this treatment which has been approved in India, financially viable for you. That patient came to Bangalore from New Zealand, got this treatment of CAR-T, and he himself has narrated the story after the treatment that he is fully fit and hale and hearty and gone back. So that's the impact which these things are creating globally. And I'm also very happy to let you know that this trend looks like has become sustainable in the country. When it comes to CAR-T, we still currently we have at least 4 or 5 new products under approval studies going on, maybe the last phase of their clinical studies going on. That's a big achievement for this country, where we are recognized as a country which manufactures and produces only generic medicine, quality generic medicines at affordable prices. So we are actually moving beyond that. And this CAR-T is just one example. How did it all happen is, of course, the contribution of people who are developing it, who have developed it. But from regulatory side, there have been lots of very important interventions which we did in last couple of years, which directly or indirectly has given a very strong signal that regulator means business in this country now. And whatever was happening, the context has changed, and when context changes, the content also has to change. And one of the bigger achievements which we, as a regulator and regulatory system, which we have achieved is that message has been basically communicated and has landed at the right place in most of the cases. People have realized that they have to change. And that is actually helping a lot of innovation to get into the system when it comes to the regulatory domain and the product development, innovative product development. And some of the interventions which I would like to mention here, which are important, though we have done many more, but I think in the interest of time, some of them which have far-reaching implications. The first and foremost is the revised Schedule M, which we have now operationalized for one group of industry, which is having turnover of more than 250 crores. So for them, it's almost a year now when this is already there on ground. And for the companies which are less than 250 crores turnover, we have given them some more time till December 31st of this year. And 1st of January, I think we will implement for them also. That's one of the things which has probably one of the best things which would have happened for the Indian industry in the context of global supply chain and global recognition. Now our standards are similar to WHO GMP standards, and the recognition would be much better than what it was earlier. Another thing from industry producers' point of view is that a lot of international and domestic buyers, they were putting it as they have to be WHO GMP certified manufacturing unit if they have to participate in the tenders. Now it will be actually, in most of the cases, WHO GMP certified or revised Schedule M compliant. So that gives essentiality in the system that people who have to be in the business, they will have to upgrade their systems and procedures for production of medicines in this country. So that was one very important intervention which government did. Today, I'm very happy and proudly say that about 99% of our regulatory processes are now digital. We have almost come out of a physical system of approving a product or process or issue of any licenses, and that's a huge shift from past, because that is actually helping us as a regulator and of course the industry and other applicants it actually is helping us in the domain of ease of doing business for both parties, and it's a win-win situation. Other advantages I'm sure you all know. One of the most noise-creating activities currently and for last 2 years is the risk-based inspection. People from the press sitting here, they all know, sometimes more than me also, that what is happening. But that has actually sent a very strong signal to the system that regulator means business. Beyond that, for us, that has actually given us a real understanding of the problem and how to solve them. And many of the interventions which has happened recently has actually come out of the experience of the risk-based inspection which we are doing for last little more than 2 years. And that has actually, in fact, the Schedule M revision has actually happened only because of the experience of RBI and observations of RBI. The system was convinced that this is the time when this need to be revised, otherwise there is a problem. Another important intervention which has happened is at the regulator's end, there are a lot of uncomfortable questions which are being asked among our internal system, which is completely a new activity at CDSCO. The leadership is asking questions which are uncomfortable for the team members. And many a time it was surprise for them that how these questions can be asked, but that has given a sense of responsibility and ownership, which is actually reflecting in the way things are moving and things, the whole team has shifted the mindset and the way they work. So that has been a very good and interesting shift in the working culture of the organization, which many of you also give me feedback that it is being felt at the applicant and stakeholders end also. We are also working with a motto now because we know that our resource is limited. This country has about 10,000 manufacturing units, maybe more when I take medical device industry also, since it has also become regulated. And we will never have resources which would be sufficient for actually auditing or managing this huge system. That is just not possible. So only thing which we can do is either we reduce our workload, whatever we do, we choose that what has to be done, which has the maximum impact on the system. And thereby, it makes important for us to, whatever we do, has to be of so much of impact that it has induction effect on other parts of the system. Because we are constrained on resources, and so on the reduction of the activities where we get ourselves involved, we are reducing ourselves significantly. Couple of examples. Technically, some of you who are from the industry, you know this T license issue. So there are, historically we have been intervening at every stage, right from start of R&D to approval licensing requirements. So we are now moving ourselves out when it comes to issue of or need of T licenses till we move into a clinical stage. Pre-clinical stage, we are trying to move out of the T license issuing system, which would give huge relief to us and the industry side, where they don't have to come for getting T licenses for doing research. So that is at the final stage of approval because it needs amendment in our regulation. So because of that, it took some more time, but we are at the last stage of doing that. On the similar lines, we are actually removing the need for the no objection certificate to hold low risk clinical trials, which are basically the BA/BE studies, which are very simple and lowest risk. And the good part is that 50% of licenses which we were issuing or NOCs which we were issuing, they were all this low risk. There is no need to be worried about the study conductance. And expertise in the country has grown to a level where we have experts to manage these kind of low risk studies without much problem. So we will be now moving out of almost 50% of BNOCs which we were issuing for doing the BA/BE studies. Huge saving of resources at our end, and also a huge saving of resources at the applicant's end. So ultimately, we are trying to move to a situation where we are lighter on regulation but very heavy on execution, so that we can judiciously use our resources which have been given to us to manage this system. Some of the other good and progressive things which are happening currently in the country when it comes to development and approval of innovative medicines, I see, because I'm probably most close to those applications. So I know the real situation, and I'm actually very happy and very bullish about where we are moving, the way things are happening in this country. The IND applications have increased in number, and not only increased in number, but some of them, with some of the industries, they are at the last stage of development or maybe filed for approval with agencies like USFDA also. And some of those assets have a potential to change the face of the whole Indian pharma industry at the global scene. If one of them gets approval, or even one of them gets approval, you will see this shift the way this world looks towards India, and that shift from volume to value, which government is trying to do, that will be the point when this whole shift will happen, and one or two assets getting through would basically, maybe from the turnover point of view also, we can move to maybe the next level where we want to be. Otherwise, this projection of 130 billion US dollars looks very difficult. But we also have this confidence that in the next 5 years, one or two of these assets will come at the global scene, and they have the potential to change the whole dynamics. So that is a very big thing and shift you will see in a couple of years. And we are observing that shift in discovery research. Now, smaller companies, startups, because of the government policies, because of the incentives, because of the PLI scheme from DOP, we see a movement happening there. And that's the real use, because the generics, whatever we have been doing for last 30, 40 years, now everybody knows that this skill is almost commoditized in this country, to the extent that it's so heartening sometimes to see a blue shed and blue building in remote part of this country, which is a manufacturing pharma unit, a small manufacturing pharma unit in maybe a remote part of the country. Sometimes when we travel, we see. So that's the way this whole skill has actually spread in this country, especially for generic. But the shift towards innovation is now visible, be it medical device, be it drug, be it biologics, be it digital health. Everywhere I see that movement happening. And the best part is the world is actually waiting for us to shift from generic to innovation, because they have the confidence that we are the only country in the world who can give them quality innovation at affordable price. Till now, we are recognized as giving quality generic medicines at affordable prices. Now we have to demonstrate that potential of quality innovative medicine at affordable prices. And because of confidence, the world is waiting for that. And I'm sure the time is not too far away for that. Having said all these positives, which at least I'm very bullish about, and I'm sure a lot of people sitting here are part of that whole journey and that whole dynamics happening here in the country. But there are few words of caution which we have to be very careful about. And first and foremost is, of course, the quality. The experience from the generic domain currently, whatever we have seen, there is huge scope of improvement. A lot of things are shifting from quality point of view also. A lot of manufacturers have realized and they are upgrading their system. But we have to be very careful that that mindset should not get transferred when we move into or shift towards the innovation. That is going to be a big detrimental for this country if we do not understand this. So, request to this community, where a lot of press is also sitting, is to propagate this message that they have to be very careful about the quality part of whatever they do in this domain of pharmaceutical development. And the good part is that the kind of people, the kind of industries which are into this innovation game, they realize the importance of quality. And the way regulator is also pushing quality, I think there is a realization and everybody will have to change, and a lot of changes are happening. So that is one important thing which we have to be very careful about. Another thing, couple of things is, for a concern for me of the size of the industry which we are. Out of about 10,000 industry, we have about 7 to 8,000 in MSME sector. And from that proportion, I do not see the graduation from micro to small to medium to large. Very few, you can count on fingers. In last couple of years, you would have seen that shift from one sector to the next sector. That is a big worry for us. Because the kind of potential this country has, the kind of skill this country has, and the kind of opportunity this country has, many more shifts should happen, and that is not happening. And one of the reasons is that this sector of MSME is caught up into a game of profitability, no long-term thinking, no strategies for long-term survival or growth, which is something to worry about. So this is something which we need to understand and propagate, that there is a huge potential. Everybody has potential of growing at least 2.5 times in next 5 years. Things is in platter, we just have to take it. And for that, we have to realize our responsibilities, and then nobody can stop us. Big amount of risk money has to come to this country. So I'm telling this because a lot of people who sitting here would have influence in that sector. We cannot do innovation because it's a risky business unless until there is a risk money available in this country. And today we are not having enough risk money in this country. Whatever money people, the investors, they still are very defensive. One of the reasons why US and Western Europe is doing a lot of innovation is because they have lots of risk money available with them. So that money has to shift to India. And you people have to do that effort to bring that. And one last, because I know time is up, one last point which sometimes worries me is the federal structure of the regulatory system in this country, which is a very good, I think, whosoever made it, it has huge potential. But the kind of maturity which is required to run that federal system and regulation, unfortunately, we have not reached to that because of whatever reasons. I mean, that's a different story. But we have to realize that to attain the real potential, this country has to manage that federal structure of regulatory system with a very mature mindset. Otherwise, the harmonization, the coordination, which ultimately impacts the outcome of the regulatory system, takes much more time than what it should take. And people sitting here are very important component of that whole value chain to influence that, to bring that maturity into the system. And once everybody works towards that, we will see the real potential coming out of the system. So with this, I will end here. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.